Rozbifin is the topic that is probably being discussed most of all after the anti-terrorist operation. This is the ratification of the association agreement with the EU. I will talk to Andriy Shevchenko, Ukrainian MP, and the first deputy head of the Committee on Human Rights. He'll tell us about European Day in the Parliament, proposal for the Presidents and Verkhovna Rada. Thank you. First of all, we have good news from Latvia. They have ratified the agreement between EU and Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia. We know that Romania and Moldova were the first to do this, that our Georgian friends are moving very fast in this direction. They think that the protraction with the ratification in Ukraine is absolutely inadequate in this case against this background. Okay, let's be frank, we understand the reasons. Only the president can submit this document for ratification in the Ukrainian parliament. We understand that there's a colossal pressure on President Poroshenko from Russia and some members of the EU, and the aim of this pressure is to maximally protract the process of ratification. We also understand that this is a very dangerous story. The more we protract with the ratification, the bigger is the risk that there will be MPs in the parliament who would like to reach some deal with the president and Ukrainian people to sell their votes in favor, so to say. And we understand that the danger is even bigger as the parliamentary elections approach. We can say that the ratification can hang there not only for weeks but months and probably years. And we shall support the presidents with very simple words: don't hesitate, be braver, submit the document for ratification. The decision now lies not with you, not with foreign countries. This is the will of the Ukrainian people, who have paid very dearly for this. More than that, I think that the Ukrainian parliament very soon can hold this special European Day when we would ratify the association agreement and also consider the package of draft laws linked to the association agreement. We can talk about a dozen such draft laws. We were working together with the rehabilitation package of reforms, which is a public initiative. This includes, among others, the law on technical regulations, the ratification of the clauses of Roman Statute, the package of draft laws that should help Ukrainian agriculture to use the advantages that the association agreement brings, this identification of animals, the law on the state control over fodder, and some others. These are technical and, of course, very special words, but there are fantastic possibilities, new opportunities for Ukrainian agriculture. There's also changes on the law on the single state demographic register that will allow us to introduce biometric passports, which will bring us one step closer to visa-free regime with the European Union. So I think that we should devote one day in the Parliament to consider the package of laws that will enable us to move towards the European Union. I think that we do not need Euro imitation, we need Euro integration, and this is the case that will help unite the President and the majority of MPs. So my proposal, and this is also the proposal of Batkivshchina faction in the Parliament, this week to hold a European Day in the Parliament, and we have questions. The Central Council of the hundreds of Maidan. What is Mr. Poroshenko afraid of? Why doesn't he submit the document for ratification? What are the forces that he fears? And could you please be specific about the people? I don't think that Mr. Poroshenko is afraid of someone in the parliament or some forces, but the situation is that there's very hard outside pressure from the Russian Federation and some of our partners in the European Union, and the aim of the pressure is to either disrupt or to protract the ratification process. If we do not ratify the association agreement until the end of September, this means that we won't be able to use the volume of quotas that our agreements with European partners provide for. Because according to the mechanism, after the association agreement is ratified, we inform our partners, and from the first day of the next month, we can use another additional package of quotas. So it is very important that we do it until the end of September. Then the matter is not fear. There's nothing to be fearful about for Poroshenko or Ukrainian parliament. It is the consistent foreign pressure where people who do not wish Ukraine well try to disrupt or protract the ratification problem. The topic is delicate. I think that the president or the minister for foreign affairs would be more qualified to tell about this, but we see who moves how in this direction, and the Baltic states and Romania show with their prompt actions that they understand that time doesn't wait. We also understand that some countries of the so-called old Europe have their qualifications, but I would know, and conditions, but I would not rather name them. I think this is the question to the president. So the question to you is, first, you yourself, do you clearly know points and clauses of the paragraphs and clauses of this association agreement? Because we have quite a lot of letters saying that there is some hidden intention, especially about point 81 of Article 144. You know, there's a hidden intention, especially the Articles 143, 133, where people could lose their opportunity to get land, and there's also a danger that territorial communities would not get their lands. If we make a very broad analysis, then we see a lot of hidden dangers there. What can you tell about this? Why it is being so signed so fast? Maybe we will live in different countries. I do not see quick signing or quick ratification. Unfortunately, you know, the process has been there for several years and cost us several hundred lives. I would not like to discuss now whether we need the agreement. I think that the Ukrainian people have answered this unequivocally. 1,500 pages of the document. It was very thoroughly worked upon by different Ukrainian presidents and governments, but I think that in simple words, we become a part of the single Ukrainian space, and this is going to be useful for many average Ukrainians, those who go on their trucks to Europe will know that they will be able to go from Hungary to Lisbon. Those who sew shirts in Chernivtsi will know that their goods will be sold all over Europe, and our students will be able to study everywhere. I would not rather play conspiracy games here. I would rather go fast forward and use all the advantages that there are there, especially where the protection of human rights and freedoms is concerned. Going back to ratification, so what are the reasons that would not allow the president to strengthen the will of people, to confirm the will of people under the pressure of foreign circumstances? We see that this is on our agenda, and how this pressure is being exerted. I can sign every word of your rhetoric question. I think that the president until now has not explained to the country in a clear-cut way why there is protection. We can only guess about the real mechanism of pressure on Poroshenko. I still think that he should rather lean upon not on some agreements with our partners, but on the will of Ukrainian people. This decision is not with Mr. Poroshenko, is not with Russian Federation or whoever. This is the decision of the Ukrainian people, and I think that it should be implemented through ratification. Pavlo Klimkin, who was here last week, was asked about the delay, and the position of the Foreign Department is that Ukraine is still needs to fulfill several obligations, including legislation. Well, I think that we all understand what it's all about. Diplomats have the task to find more or less decent explanations to very complicated problems. I think that the problem is not the text of the ratification, not the agreement between the ministries, which can be done within one day. The problem is foreign pressure, and we should support Ukrainian government and Ukrainian president in this. We cannot allow some outside forces to tell us when and how to ratify. This should be the clear-cut position of Ukrainian parliament. Do you feel the support of other political forces? Yes, we do, and I think that today in the parliament we have a clear-cut majority in order for the ratification, but I would not guarantee it within several months. You know, the parliament has not changed. Because we did have 150 deputies in favor of Europe, and we still have them. Yes, we have over 100 of people who came from Yanukovych's side, and some of them are trying to launch their political life anew, but most of them are those who try to get some preferences and to adjust. So every time when we see 226 votes in favor of some decision, this means that the government has to yield a lot in order to get their decisions through. And if we protract until autumn, then I think we will see dozens of MPs who would like to trade with the president and the rest in order to get some preferences for them. I think that our political forces will be able to find consensus on this issue. I cannot allow myself not to ask you the question about Andriy Shevchenko, as you are deputy head of the Human Rights Committee in the Parliament. The question and the issue of Andriy Shevchenko, what can you do as an MP, as a deputy head of the committee? What can you do? We have discussed this with my colleagues in the Human Rights Committee. At our next sitting, I think we will look into it specifically. I think that our committee and Ukraine in general should ask international human rights organizations for support. It is very hard for us to solve this issue here on Ukrainian land. I think that Andriy Shevchenko's case is the brutal brutal case of violation of human rights, of the right to just court, of movement. I think that she was taken hostage and then taken forcibly out of Ukrainian territory. We should use all opportunities to drag her out of this prison in Voronezh. We should do everything now that she feels our support. I think that she is the pride of Ukraine and she is an inspiration for many Ukrainians, and Nadia should know that the country is proud of her, and I believe very much that she soon will be free.
What can MPs do? We cooperate with the person who is authorized to work on human rights and an ombudsman, and also will speak to international organizations, advocacy groups, and international organizations. Is there any other question? I'm pleased that you support ratification of the will of Ukraine when the Committee on Human Rights in the Parliament, when will you take care that state property in 1991 became the property of a private? We have some differences in Ukraine. We are like slaves in Ukraine because natural resources of Ukraine. So the state doesn't give those resources to Ukrainians, and we are not owners. And now you are going to give us to EU to be slaves in EU. I don't see no myth, no slavery of Ukraine, no slavery of EU. Slavery is when for years we suffer because of absence of reforms, because of corruption, and because of lawlessness. And that's why all the changes, all the reforms in Ukraine, I hope they will stop that. And I have lots of hopes for EU and the Ukraine. I hope it will become the country without corruption, with the rule of law, and when people can be free and and live in a fair society. We have time for one more question. Alexei, Spilno TV. Now, it's popular to attack Maidan and to say that all the people are from FSB. When Batkivshchina and when the president will bring to the parliament a draft law on ratification, and if people from Maidan come, and if there is a pressure on that, will you support them? If they come and press the parliament to pass that law, or press on the president to bring that law to the parliament, will you stand for them, for people from Maidan? Let's not be general. There is no need to press on the parliament as to the association agreement. There is one person who must do his work. That is the president of Ukraine. The situation is not easy. That's why we should support him with our clear position. And on Maidan, there are different people. Probably there are very good hero, and probably there are people who should not be there. This is a very good soil for not only for special services of Ukraine, but also from special services from other countries. My position is very clear. Maidan is not just a physical place or memory or a museum. Maidan means serial changes that must take place in Ukraine. Those people, I hope that people on Maidan, they will find a better application for their life than to stay whole days there. Thank you very much for coming. And we hope that your next time we will congratulate you with ratification of the agreement. Thank you very much. If you have any other question, and I will be ready to answer questions over there.